Well, I think that Andy Burnham's stamping his authority on the Cabinet and on the future of the government, and I hope that people who may have little bits of gripes about the top jobs will just recall that two very powerful women are now back in. That's Louise Haigh that Beth was talking about, and of course Angela Rayner. So I think the balance will be fine. I think that the drive will be evident within days and weeks. And I think that Andy's going to be saying, look, to everybody, your job's on the line. Either you deliver now and you use the creativity and innovation that I'm prepared to release and let you have, or you'll be out. So I think the message is very clear. John Healey represents and lives in a seat in South Yorkshire, not very far from me. I like the guy very much. He's quiet, unassuming, and he delivers. And he, as he's shown when he resigned from the Defence Secretary's job, he has values and he has integrity.
How difficult will it be, do you think, though, to keep the unity of the party? Andy Burnham was very clear he wanted to do that, but a lot of Starmerites have left. There's been a little bit of griping and grouching, as you've alluded to. How much of a challenge is that going to be now?
It's always going to be. It's a brutal business, and people who are out are going to be licking their wounds and feeling very aggrieved. I think some of them knew it was going to happen, and that Andy Burnham would want to bring in both fresh blood and renewed vigour. So I think some of it was predictable, not quite as much as people might have expected. So here we go. It's going to be 2.5 years of a roller coaster of a ride, Cathy. And I just want to say to people, everybody of goodwill who wants this country to succeed will want Andy Burnham and his new team to succeed, because without it, we're frankly down the pan.
Well, that's a brutal warning. But David, you talk about 2.5 years roller coaster ride. I mean, when you look at what Andy Burnham was promising in his speech this morning, the biggest change in 40 years, a remaking of the political and economic model, huge promises, and he's flagging, big changes on social care, cost of living, biggest council house building programme since the war. This is huge. How can he sustain that for 2.5 years without going to the country?
Well, he can sustain it because he has the majority, a massive majority in Parliament, and we don't have a presidency, so there's no precedent or reason why he should go to the country until he has to. I'm smiling a little bit because 25 years ago I thought with Tony Blair and Gordon Brown that some of us were actually changing the runes and bringing about seismic change. So we'll see how my very good friend Andy gets on. And I ought to call him Prime Minister now. I should be addressing him as Prime Minister.
Yeah, but you know what? He said you were part of the problem. I mean, he included himself in that because obviously he was in the Cabinet previously. But you would have thought that all of those changes that Tony Blair and the government you were in brought in, that counts for very little, according to Andy Burnham. He wants to uproot it all.
I think he wants to indicate that there will be a seismic change. I get that. We all stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, and sometimes we give our predecessors a bit of a kicking on the way. I don't mind. What I mind about is whether we actually get re-elected in 2.5 years' time, and if we do, to have a second term where we can really build on the progress that has already started over the last 2 years, and which Andy will electrify, I think, in the months ahead.
So it sounds to me as if you're saying actually the change will be quite incremental rather than seismic. Is that what you're expecting?
I think that you can have extremely rapid and high-profile incremental change. We're not in a revolution, and his biggest task is to get rid of the inertia throughout the system, not just in civil service and public service generally, but right through our country post-COVID. We really haven't shaken that off. And I think if from the top he can set an example, and if those who are being appointed today and tomorrow get the message that it's delivery, 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 we might actually get a sense of a momentum and a purpose back into the system.
Yeah, but you're sort of alluding potentially, I think, if I'm not taking words out of your mouth, to welfare reform. If you add that to social care reform and, you know, the biggest council house building programme since the war, these are huge things. And I just wonder how you can do that without, you know, has he bitten off more than he can chew is what I'm trying to ask you, really.
Well, he thinks not. I mean, it's a hell of a job, and he does know it. And, I was very close. Well, I know he does. He's thought about it a great deal. And I think that with the people around him, including the refreshed Downing Street with a chief of staff who really has great experience and knows what he's doing, they can open up Downing Street and beyond to expertise and talent from wherever it lies. So I'm hoping John Healey will immediately bring in some of the best and credible economists in our country and start to shake up the Treasury once and for all.
What about bringing in Tony Blair, for example?
Well, I hope that Andy would be prepared to listen to Tony, not necessarily to take any more notice of him than he will do of me, but to be prepared to listen, to have an open mind, to be prepared to hear friendly criticism and not see it as a knocking job. So let's hope that the Andy Burnham I know and have known for all these years turns out to be the same Andy Burnham in 2 years' time as Prime Minister of our country.
Well, he name-checked you in his speech when he became Labour leader on Friday. It seems like a century ago. He talked about you being his truest mentor, who taught him everything he knows apart from about football, of course. You got a difference of opinion there. But be honest with him now, on air, on Sky. What would be your advice to him that you'd really like him to listen to?
Well, it's the same advice I gave him when he won the by-election, which was just try and stay the same. His values of family and community, of building from the bottom, of a communitarianism, which I'm very warm to, gives me hope that he'll be able to do it. And what he will need is the backing of all of us. So whether people are upset, whether they're licking their wounds, tomorrow and thereafter, all of us got to try and be there, helping him to do the job in the way that we want.
Just coming back to where we started off, the cabinet appointments, John Healey, and what that means. We've been talking about this huge agenda that Andy Burnham has. We don't know how he's going to deliver it. We don't know how he's going to pay for it. He says he's going to set that out, and I'm sure he will. But it's quite clear, isn't it, that there are significant tax rises coming down the track, not least to pay for social care, but also obviously there's defence spending as well. Do you back the kind of wealth taxes, the land taxes that have been floated by aides of Andy Burnham?
Well, some of those have been floating from University College London and the New Economics Foundation actually have to admit that their ideas would take years to actually bring into fruition, even if they were politically acceptable. So what Andy and John Healey and colleagues have now got to do is to take the best expert advice on how we can redeploy what we've got and how we can raise resources that don't hit people in their pockets and don't spook the markets. If it were easy, any fool could do it. It isn't, but it is doable in my book. And I think once he's got people around him and around John Healey who understand the bond markets a lot better than some traditional Treasury civil servants, we might actually see that those bond markets want the clarity, the certainty, the energy, the drive, the commitment to growth and economic activity, and they'll respond to it.
What does John Healey know about the bond markets?
Well, he was, of course, in the Treasury team years ago.
Years ago?
Yeah, but he knows one thing, and that's absolutely clear, and he did it as Defence Secretary, which was to draw people in and to listen. And somebody the other day said to me, well, so-and-so doesn't know anything about economics, so they didn't ought to be in that job. And I said to them, it's not being an economist. It's not even having, as we've seen with Rachel, God bless her, having been in the Bank of England as an employee. It's actually knowing how to bring people in who can shake the tree, who can actually challenge Treasury orthodoxy. The only thing that Liz Truss was right about was the need to put a rocket booster under the Treasury. I hope John will do it.
Right, and bring in private sector investment. Is that the way to make them, make the magic money tree be a bit more forthcoming?
Andy Burnham in Greater Manchester, albeit it's 3 million, not 66 million people, actually did show how the public-private partnership, that working with business could bring in outside investment and could start that delivery, including housing development and much else. So it can be done, but it's going to be breathtaking over the next few months. I hope it will be, because we need that energy, we need that return to the kind of commitment that got Labour elected in 1945 and in 64, 66, and I might say it, in 1997. The energy, the enthusiasm, the lifting of morale, the hope that Andy talked about, I remember in 97, and it gave us 13 years in government. If Andy can achieve that, I shall be rejoicing, if I'm here, of course.
So I hope you are. I mean, that's a plea,
Cathy.
really.
Thank you very much.
A plea, really, not to write that off. The achievements of the Blair era, because there was a bit of that, wasn't there?
I think
slightly downplaying it.
Yeah, I think we've seen again and again in the Labour Party writing off the greater achievements of our previous governments, and I fear that it's a trend that Andy is falling into. It's the one piece of criticism over the last day or two that he might hear when he views Sky Television sometime in the future.
I'll send him the clip.
Thank you very much.
Let me tempt you into another piece of criticism, if I may, because we were talking about the scale of what he wants to do. What would be your message to him about wealth creators, about people who are living in London and the South East, for example, who might be worried about the land tax? You were talking about, those ideas taking a long time to come in. Would you also urge him to be wary about a whole swathe of new tax rises? Obviously, he's got to keep within the manifesto, but there are ways of doing that.
Well, all I'd say to him is that you're the Prime Minister for the whole of the country. You're the Prime Minister that wants to encourage wealth creation. You're the Prime Minister that has shown in your previous job that you could actually be extremely business friendly whilst being tough and concentrating on greater equality. And if you can bring that to bear nationally, I think we can see that we can bring people on board, even if they are extremely wealthy, on the grounds that they are living in our country and we want them to stay here, and they have to have their children educated and get a job, and they want a country that's worth living in. So we all have something to gain from a country that's going places, that's getting better, that's safer, securer, that's actually giving people improved living standards. It's a message of hope, and my goodness me, we need it.
You said it's going to be breathtaking. If his plan starts to bear fruit, and reform are falling in the polls at the moment, if that starts to accelerate, do you think he should consider an earlier election than 2029 when he's obliged to have one?
Well, he might not take all that much notice of me, even though people think he does. I wouldn't do that. I would wait until you've demonstrated that you can do the job well, that you can deliver, that the government's on a roll. And at that point, you ask the general electorate to go with you, to give you another chance for a second term. I think anybody who wants him to go early wants him to lose.
Right, but he could pick his moment, though, if the polls start to turn his direction.
Oh, yeah, you could pick your moment. Poor old Theresa May picked her moment and lost the majority that she had. I think it's a dangerous game, and what we've got in Downing Street is someone who can build on what's already happened in the last 2 years, who can tell a story, build a narrative, and take us rapidly forward on the back of it. And until he's been able to do that, it would be very foolish indeed to test the patience of the electorate. I think they've had enough of instability all round, and what they'd like us to do now is knuckle down, get on with it, and deliver.